So, you want to save the world. You want to end poverty. Well, the answer is not to chain yourself to a tree or protest for yet another international aid bureaucracy or government program. No, the answer to both is more Canadian energy. The ticket out of poverty is cheap, clean, reliable Canadian energy. Energy to heat and cool homes and workplaces. Energy to move people and the stuff they need. Energy to grow nutritious food. Energy defeats poverty. As for saving the planet, well, what is the greatest source of greenhouse gases in the world today? Coal-fired electricity in Asia. A Fraser Institute report showed that coal supplies 54% of China's and 56% of India's energy consumption. Coal use is up 66% in the 2 decades leading up to the present. In Asia, it's up 182%. Similarly, China quadrupled new coal power added to its grid in 2022 and has 6 times as many coal-fired plants under construction as the rest of the world combined. Replacing this coal with clean Canadian natural gas, which has half the carbon emissions for each unit of energy it produces, would displace millions of tons of greenhouse gas emissions. Exporting 1 billion cubic feet a day of Canadian LNG to China would therefore reduce global emissions by 15 million tons of CO2 every single year, doubling Canada's production from the current 18 million BCF per day. And sending the extra gas to replace coal overseas would cut global emissions by as much as 630 million tons of CO2 every year. That's almost the amount of the entire Canadian economy. Let me say that again. Doubling Canadian natural gas production, liquefying it and sending it overseas to displace dirty coal would reduce emissions globally by almost as much as the total emissions of all of Canada. A National Bank study showed recently that if we replaced half of India's coal-fired electricity demand with Canadian gas, it would cut global emissions by 2.5 billion tons. That's 3 times the emissions of all of Canada. Doesn't that sound like a better idea than just shutting down our economy and impoverishing our people? And demand for gas is actually growing. The International Energy Agency says that natural gas demand will grow 28% by 2050. Canada has it under our grounds. Natural Resources Canada estimates that the ultimate potential of the Western Canada Sedimentary Basin has actually more than tripled because there's more technology to get it to surface, all the way up to over 1,000 trillion cubic feet. We are the world's 5th biggest supplier of natural gas, but we only sell to the US. Last year, gas prices reached an all-time low in the US, averaging about $2.21 per million metric billion thermal units, because North America is already flooded with the stuff. The Americans are fracking it and bringing it to surface on their own. So we're selling already into a saturated market. Yet in Asia, the price is almost $12. So we're getting $2 for something that goes for $12 overseas. Now, if you sell something that is worth $12 for $2, you're losing a lot of money. But by contrast, imagine if we took something that's going for $2 over here and sold it overseas for 12, and then we did that billions of times. We would get very rich very fast. Let me put this into perspective for you. If Canada had sold its 2023 natural gas exports to Asia instead of the US in the same volumes, we would have gotten $25 billion USD more than we got. In other words, we are donating over $25 billion to the US economy every year by giving them our gas on the cheap. So the question then is, why wouldn't Canadian companies take advantage of this price differential and profit from selling to Asia? And the answer is that requires building large-scale plants that compress and cool the gas into a liquid that can go on a ship and cross an ocean, which the federal government is blocking from going ahead, despite private industry proposing 18 of these liquefaction plants when the Liberals took power in 2015. Not a single one of them is completed. The only one even close is LNG Canada, which was approved by Stephen Harper and should come online soon. But the government, the federal government, has blocked, delayed, or driven away all the others. Meanwhile, Germany, Japan, Poland, Ukraine, Greece, and countless other countries have all sought our natural gas, yet Justin Trudeau, acting on the advice of his economic advisor, Mark Carney, now Prime Minister, said there's no business case. Now, all this despite the fact that Canada has a massive physical advantage over the Americans. It's 25% cheaper to liquefy gas in Canada than it is in the US Gulf Coast because it's colder here, so that nature does most of the work. Then, there's the shipping times. It only takes about 10 or 11 days to ship off the Pacific coast to Asia. It takes 20 days to go from the US Gulf Coast, so we can ship in half the time. So why can they, the Americans, build 7 natural gas export plants and we've completed none? The answer is the Liberal government stands in the way. We can do it, but we need a real plan to take action. LNG exports have grown in the US in the last 15 years. Let's look at the chart. Here's the US. Now, here's Canada. Yes, that's right. Canada has seen no increase, while the American export of LNG has exploded. Why can they do it and we can't? Well, the Americans break ground, we break into working groups. The US builds an LNG terminal in 2 years. Here, that's how long it takes to update an environmental impact website. They fast-track projects. In Canada, we fast-track press releases about future consultations on possible projects. The Americans and Chinese complete gas and coal projects before our Liberal government can get out of bed in the morning and put its trousers on. But Liberal laws, rules, and taxes block building. They've updated their talking points and they've dressed those talking points up in a banker's suit. And that's tricked a lot of people into thinking that Liberals are now serious about getting things built. But that won't happen as long as the high energy taxes and anti-development laws, all of which Mr. Carney says he wants to keep, continue to stand in the way. So here's our plan. First, axe the entire carbon tax, including the industrial carbon tax that makes it too expensive for LNG production, liquefaction to go ahead. The US has no such tax, nor do most of our competitors. We must beat them on costs if we're going to beat them in foreign markets. Second, we need to get rid of energy production caps on oil and gas so our industry can actually grow. Third, we need to scrap the No New Energy Law, C-69, that makes it us probably the slowest place in the developed world to grant permits. Next, we need to put in place what I call shovel-ready zones. These are areas that have clearly defined borders in which there are major projects that are pre-approved before a business even has to apply for them. That will signal to industry that they won't have to spend billions on lobbyists, lawyers, consultants to try and get a permit. The permit will already have been done in advance. And then, the final step is for the government to get out of the way and let the free market do its work. Business has a massive and powerful incentive to build these projects. We have massive advantages naturally, without any help from the state. And there are hundreds of billions of dollars at play for Canadian business that would incentivize them to go ahead without any handouts or bailouts, just jobs and construction. We'll unleash massive energy booms across our country. Our gas will power overseas economies while bringing home the dollars for our workers, our health care, and our people. We'll defund dirty dictators. Our pipe fitters, welders, carpenters, miners, steel workers, and others will rack up six-figure salaries and thousands in overtime pay. Money that they will keep in their pocket because Conservatives, when we eventually win government, will cut income taxes. Still more money will flood into government coffers from a bigger economy. That money will fund hospitals and schools. It'll make us independent and self-reliant. Our dollar, the Canadian dollar, will go up because we'll be selling more valuable goods to the world. And a higher Canadian dollar will boost your purchasing power for things like gas, food, and homes. Look, here's the choice, and here's the debate we're going to have in Parliament. The Liberal vision is energy poverty. Our vision is energy abundance. Their vision deprives the world of our energy. Ours ends poverty, cheap, clean, reliable, powerful Canadian energy. we will become the richest, freest, and most self-reliant country on earth. So let's get building.